Hi guys, this is Debarshi. Welcome to my newest vlog. I apologize, I haven't done vlogs in quite a bit. I'd say about a month or so, maybe a little less than that. It's actually been because I've been really depressed for some reason. Different situations are going on in my life. But today, in this vlog, I really want to talk about um, how we should approach autism. So, what I see in society is that whenever we find an autistic student, an autistic kid, or an autistic person, we always view this person as a disabled person and as someone who is a burden to society. And promoting this notion that someone is disabled, that someone is less capable, can have very ostracizing effects on that person. I know that for a fact, as a human being who has been ostracized before because of being so different. And it can have very nasty long-term effects on the mind. So, furthermore, I think an issue is that we use this term disability, and I'm not trying to offend anyone here because, again, I have autism. And I really disagree with this term. And the reason is because we're basically saying that that someone who has autism or someone who has bipolar disorder or whatnot are less capable than other people. And many times that actually isn't true. They're not necessarily less capable or not capable. Instead, they are they have their own way of doing things. So for me as an autistic person, I have a differently wired brain. I fixate on certain things, but that doesn't mean I necessarily am disabled or like less capable at performing certain tasks. I just have my own way of doing these tasks and my own way of learning. That is why I personally don't like the word disability. I tend to use the word condition. And this to me makes more sense because you can be conditioned in a different way. But to say that you are disabled because you have a certain condition, to say that you are less capable, that promotes this stigma against you, I think. And it just causes you yourself, the disabled person, well, not the disabled person, but the person with the condition, to feel like he or she is not as special as everyone else, yet they really are. In fact, I would argue that they're more special, in fact, because they call it special needs for a reason. So yeah, that's just my sort of tip there. I try to stay away from the word disability. I try to use the word condition. And I know that some people may get offended by it, but I'm not trying to say that you guys don't have challenges to deal with. In fact, if anything, I'm saying that you guys do. As someone who has Asperger's, I understand totally that I have significant challenges within society. My social skills, they often affect my academics as well. And I understand how difficult it can be for me to survive out in the real world at times with my weaknesses. But just as I have many weaknesses, I have many strengths as well. I'm a normal human being, and I just don't like to use that word disability or disabled to describe these weaknesses, because every human being has weaknesses. Some of them might require more assistance or whatnot, and that's fine. But I don't think that a person is necessarily less capable because of that. I don't think we should promote the idea that a person is less capable because of that, because when we promote that idea, we basically start encouraging stigma against that individual. So that's the first thing I want to say. The second thing I really want to say is there is this theme that I have seen that almost everyone working in special needs, or everyone that I've met at least, seems to follow, and that is that someone with autism must be changed for some reason. And I hate this. I hate this very much. I think that it tells an individual not to respect their own uniqueness. It tells an individual not to love themselves for who they are. And this is ironic because when we're kids, we all, autistic or non-autistic, we're all taught that we need to be ourselves, that we need to really love and respect ourselves for who we are. And some people say this within special education, but they don't really follow it. In fact, from what I've dealt with specifically, I feel that while I was in residential treatment, I was consistently told not to STEM. And for those of you who don't know what stimming is sometimes done for concentration or whatnot for autistic students. It kind of is a form of stimulation. So one of the things I used to do is actually flick my wrist. It wasn't dangerous for me or anything, but it would help me kind of like concentrate. I'm kind of happy I dropped that, but one thing I still do that people tried to stop me from is walking consistently, pacing, and people actually made fun of me, I think, for this, and I don't think that's okay. Pacing for me has been something that I use to calm myself down, to relieve myself of anxiety, and it is a form of stimming. So when we tell autistic students that it's not okay to STEM, we are essentially neglecting to give them these coping strategies that they use to concentrate and to better themselves. Furthermore, I feel that when we put so much effort in changing an autistic student's behavior, we make that student feel that he or she is worthless. And I'm not saying that certain behaviors shouldn't change. There are things I am glad that there are behaviors that I had when I was younger that I'm glad I actually moved forward and don't have anymore. But we need to stop approaching everything with this idea or this ideology that just because an autistic student does something that is different than everyone else, we need to change that autistic student. so that they match the social norm. I think that, there's this ironic double standard where on one hand we have people like Temple Grandin talking about how we need the autistic mind and how we need people to develop things and how autistic kids can be extremely successful in society, which is true. But on the other hand, we have people basically trying to take the uniqueness of our autistic mind and trying to get us and make us quote unquote normal, which to be honest is really impossible to do because there is no normal if you think about it. But outside of that, it's just bizarre. The idea that someone would try to make an autistic kid do what they thought was socially normal is ridiculous. I mean, I remember one of the things that I had when I was in residential treatment was I used to love reading certain books on programming, on math. I was a geek. Yet people looked at this as me being socially isolated. Their argument, which wasn't that bad of an argument, was that when I read these books, I spend less time talking to other people, etc., etc. And like I mentioned, the people at the treatment center were actually pretty nice people. It really was my ARD committee which kind of pushed a lot of these things, from what I believe. But what bothers me is that, if I like to study, why are you trying to change that? I went to school with people who study 10 times more than I do, yet they're not being criticized for it because they're not autistic, or they're not diagnosed autistic. I don't know if they are or not. I'm pretty sure some of them are autistic. They just don't know it. And it really bothers me. That's one thing that really made me extremely mad. And it was just this sort of idea that me reading a book would isolate me from everyone, and thus I should put the book down and do basketball or play some video games here and there, which I played 1 or 2 video games. I'm not a video gamer. I don't like it. It just bewildered me. I'm not gonna lie. And we really need to stop this. Some autistic parents actually sort of engage in this because they try to quote unquote cure autism. And the reality is that autism can't be cured. Autism is not a disease. It is essentially, in simplest terms, a difference in brain wiring. I don't know, it's a lot more complicated than that, but that is in simplest terms. In layman's terms, it is a difference in brain wiring. You cannot cure that, unless you want to genetically reprogram your child, which is not going to happen. But yeah, you can't cure that. And we need to stop approaching autism as this disability, because when we approach it as that, that's when we're going to get the stigma. That's when that's when autistic kids are going to get a lot of backlash, and that's not okay. So yeah, that's really what I wanted to say. I think that autistic parents also need to take a step in that instead of trying to cure autism, instead of trying to force your kids to be social, which doesn't work 90% of the time in the long run, uh, I would say that you try to just naturally ease them into it. And from what I've seen, specifically with some autistic kids that I've read about, is use one of their strengths or one of their passions or their fixations or whatnot to help teach them something, you know? If a kid likes baseball, I'm just throwing a random example out there, maybe use baseball to teach that kid physics. Um, you can do the same thing with autistic kids, you know? So if a autistic kid has a fascination with molecular structure, maybe use that fascination with molecular structure to teach them chemistry or biology or whatnot, you know, since those are all related. Some of these things are going to be difficult, obviously. You can't relate everything to molecular structure. That's kind of going to be very difficult to do. But it is a start. That's all I have to say. Thank you for tuning in with me for this vlog. It's been great to give you another vlog. So until next time, this is Debarshi signing out.